You're listening to the AFL Unlimited podcast, where we tackle all the hot topics in the AFL and bring you up to speed with everything you need to know in the football landscape. We'll take a look at this weekend's games and have some mixed discussion about what to expect. Let's head up to the box for the opening bounce.
A Rohan Ripper after the siren and a Titanic performance in defence split the difference between the Cats and the Dogs, but some dodgy acts have drawn some criticism. Essendon's seemingly fast-track rebuild took another big step as Jake Stringer leads them to victory against the Hawks. And for Carlton and Gold Coast, the football world is talking about them in the worst ways possible. Boys, another week of football. Welcome back.
It's good to be here, good to be in person again once more.
Hello, Langs, and yes, due to COVID-19 restrictions, we are back, so it's fantastic.
Due to the restrictions, we're back.
It's good to see your lovely smiling faces again, as we say. And Chook, as I seem to say almost every week, there's a bit of news around this week, and some a bit closer to home than others.
You'd bloody well hope that there's some news each week.
Otherwise, you don't have a job.
It wasn't a great round of footy, to be honest. But just start off with something we spoke about last week. Obviously, Dave Mackay, however you pronounce it, I don't really care.
Yep.
He was thrown straight to the tribunal. I think we all were on the side that it would be a bit harsh for him to get weeks, and obviously he was cleared of it. I think that's well and done. But Tiz, you had a few comments to say on what this reflects on hockey and the actual tribunal team and that.
Well, thank goodness for common sense, Chook, that the right decision came out. And yeah, poor David Mackay just running through rings just to try and clear his name. And I don't think 90% of the footy world have ever heard of David Mackay until this week. I've seen some comments saying, I don't have no idea who this bloke is, and I've watched footy for ages. But he debuted in 2008. Anyway, my points were more around that I'm hearing that Hocking said if a similar case like that happened again, he'd happily refer it straight to the tribunal again. Why would you do that? Case law has been sort of mentioned in terms of you've got a precedent there that if that kind of contact happens, why waste everyone's time again? So I don't know what they're thinking there.
Someone did raise on SEN today that they thought there might have been information that the AFL and the Rugby League have received in recent weeks, months, which has caused a lot of concern. We saw, I think there were some rule changes about head-high contact in the rugby, and a player actually retired because of concussion. I think it was actually like a captain or something for one of the rugby teams.
Wow.
Okay.
And that might be an explanation as to why there seems to be a sudden crackdown on this head-high rule or head-high contact, because there's been instances this year already. Obviously, we saw Dangerfield early in the year, which we've spoken about, and then Mitch Duncan's tackle gets from Nick Holman gets reviewed, and he gets off for that. And now there is a conversation about the rules actually being changed, which I think is the correct course of action if they want to prosecute actions such as the
and if they want to ruin
absolutely
football forever.
Well, that's a whole nother talking point. I believe they can find a way to somehow. They have to find a way to somehow.
As you run towards the ball, you got to do rock, paper, scissors. Whoever wins then's allowed to pick up the ball, because otherwise you could hurt each other. Yeah, makes sense.
I just hope, and I think we spoke about it last week or in the group chat, I hope there is just a natural progression of this head-high contact coming out of the game. There will obviously always be room for accidents, as seems to be what everyone said this week during the week, but there will be a rule be changed. Yes, probably, but I hope it's not drastic and causes such an issue.
And hopefully we don't see any more instances with 32-year-old over 230 game players. That's like right. Dave Mackay. It is.
Yeah, he's flying on the radar, that's for sure. There was a contest, Gold Coast and Port Adelaide, where two players going for the ball, and obviously they didn't clash or anything crazy, but the poor player almost pulled up slightly, but then just went in the tackle. So hopefully players might be learning, but we'll see how it all goes. I was going to say, what
contest was this where two players went for the ball?
That's
maddening.
Unbelievable.
We'll move on. We were talking about trying to reduce injuries and head-high contacts, the sort of thing. But Mitch Duncan, the man you just brought up, who was subject to concussion a couple of weeks ago, he's out for
his knee got concussed.
2+ months or so. He's done a PCL. Looked pretty innocuous when he landed, and just did a little bit of an injury there, and he's going to be out. And it's really unfortunate for Geelong, because he literally is probably their top two midfielders at the Geelong Cats, and
this year particularly.
And he's missed a few crucial games in previous years and finals and the like, which have come back to bite the Cats, and it's unfortunate to see. And what sort of impact do you reckon lacking Mitch Duncan could have? We know there's a lot of quality on ballers at the side, but his class and skills Tiz is probably unmatched.
We've seen some really good stats and numbers, I suppose, around the Dogs' contested ball, and I suppose losing, your Dunkley and your Treloar. All of a sudden, they're still a really good side, but they're not as, I suppose, deadly as they were in the first 6 weeks. So Duncan's polish, kicking inside 50 and just general kicking around the ground is going to be, really well sought after. Many goals, but we're going to have to lose a bit more. Isaac Smith as well. So we'll probably know in a few weeks how, I suppose, influential he is, and we know and we rate him internally quite highly. So he's going to be a really sore miss. Hopefully some players can lift.
It's a huge loss, obviously, and you hope it's, people report it's in that 8 to 12 weeks range, and you really hope it's on that 8 range. Tom Hickey had a 1 week PCL earlier this year, and I think someone else come back from 4. Robbie Gray as well, MCL. That's huge.
Like, I'll have what he's having.
in his 250th goes out in the first quarter with MCL injury, and that's probably 6 weeks as well. He's probably one of Port's most important players still. They rely on him so much for their forward thrusts.
I'd like to know what your thoughts about Robbie Gray, because he has been a bit kind of low or down this year, but I think his importance and his level-headedness that he actually can be there if a big moment arises is so important for this Port
I think he's been solid this year, but he's clearly just at that period in his career where they shouldn't be relying on him too much. And Rosie stepped up and Boak stepped up in the midfield, and Wines is almost going to win the Brownlow this year.
He's looking pretty good.
Ollie. He's looking pretty juicy.
It's pretty wild to see. And we're talking about when people might come back from injuries. We've got one crucial player for a bird team, the Eagles, Luke Shuey. You might feel like, geez, that's a long time since I've heard that name. Is looking to come back. He played back in the Waffle, and he racked up about 23 touches or something, and looked really impressive by all reports I've heard. It's pretty exciting. And what sort of impact, Langers, do you think that Shuey coming back into this midfield will have?
I can't remember. I think it was the Port Adelaide game actually this year where Shuey came in for his one and only game and was awesome. I know that he got 122 Supercoach because he's the highest averaging mid because he's only played one game and he scored really well. So West Coast are going to struggle to get a lot of their players back in their team. Now, a couple of weeks ago, they were struggling to get players back in, but now they've got Withen and Archie and Shuey all playing in the Waffle, and they're going to have to take a few of these young kids who've been performing really well out. But yeah, he's one of the best mids in the comp when he's up and running, and West Coast seemed to be building. I thought their season was slipping away. I think we all thought that, and that win against Richmond has really reinvigorated their season, Tice, and yeah, they look like they could be on the run home.
It's been huge, and obviously Yo is so important as well. Obviously, one of their best players, and I think Shuey very complimentary as well. Tim Kelly, I don't know how far away he is, but if you get those guys back in the side with Nick Nat and JK,
Yo's back.
Yep, Elliot, JK up forward.
Yo, Elliot.
I'm trying to think. Darling's been really good. Oscar Allen, building as well. So, and then once they get McGovern back, all of a sudden it's like a pretty full lineup. So, some exciting times for the Eagles. They really a massive 2 weeks for them in defeating the Blues when the Blues are favourites, and also the Tigers.
Carlton never winning that game.
You sure?
Yeah, they're shocking. And we'll talk about Carlton later. But Chuck, there's one bit of news which sort of hurts me to talk about, and
it hits close to home, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's sort of disappointed me this week. But take us through it.
This week, well, I don't know. You could argue. I think a lot of people would argue that this is something that's actually been a part of his game for a long time, and just kind of gets swept under the rug a lot. But Joel Selwood has been fined for 2 incidents actually. Head eye/face contact with Cordy. As well as stepping on, who did he say? Stepped on Taylor Duray's ankle and also kind of pushed him a bit.
It was Bailey Dale, wasn't it? That was the head-high contact.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That was the footage I saw, unless he...
I was reading someone else's. Thanks for typing that up for me, teleprompter man.
No, it was definitely Bailey Dale. So.
Yeah. No, so he's had a few incidents in this game, and interesting enough, they were both, even though they both happened, they were classified as first-time offences. Yeah. 2 things classified because it happened. He's become the first player in the game to actually have that circumstance where 2 incidents are both seen as first-timer. And potentially if he'd done a third, it would have also been considered a first-time offence. Yep. But what do you think, boys? This sort of stuff isn't something you like to see from a leader.
I want to hear from Tiz, and then I want to hear from Chook about the reputation, which he's somewhat, not to my knowledge at all, been earning, but apparently it's a widespread knowledge. But Tiz, I want to hear from you first.
Thank you, Langs. Well, Selwood, he got fined for malicious action that is not a football action,
That's correct.
he should have got a week for it, for being stupid.
Yep.
Now, we've seen Chris Judd in the past. I think he's done a similar action where in Campbell Brown's eye contact. It sort of amongst the tackles is back in like 2006, 2007.
He did that to Matthew Pavlich as well.
As
didn't
well,
he? The
yeah,
one
I
which
can
should
remember
have cost him
the
his
Pavlich
Brownlow.
Yeah.
So there were a couple in there, and I think maybe his reputation has exceeded the MRO here. That shouldn't have been a fine. I want to see that action suspended.
Yep.
We're all passionate Cats fans right here. I think Selwood should have got a week for it.
Yep.
But because of the outcome, because nothing crazy happened, as a result, he's only fined. So you got to suspend the action, not the outcome.
We keep having that discussion.
Please. So Selwood should have got a week. Those are my thoughts.
Yep. Now, Chook, you mentioned, and seemingly from what I've read on social media, I don't know if I'm just being a biased supporter or if I've just been blind, but has Selwood got a history with this?
I've got to be honest. Yeah, he does.
Really?
Like, I love watching Joel Selwood, but if you watch contests repeatedly in weeks, you can see he gets frustrated or he loves to give a niggle.
Yeah.
And sometimes it goes a bit far. You know, you look at the joke, the classic joke of when he pushed his brother over that time. Everyone goes, that's funny and stuff.
Yeah.
But technically his brother could have been injured.
Yeah.
And he could have hurt him. But he's done things like that behind the play, and you do see him. He does do a little punch every now and then. And I think it's been a known thing. I've noted at times that, like, say whenever he's gotten a hard tag, you can see he gets really frustrated. He starts to come in. He'll come in late, and do a bit of a late hit, that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of fans outside have always gone about the ducking factor and all the ducks that makes him dirty, which I don't really have a big concern about that.
Conversation.
But I think the last few years I've seen, I'll jump on a Reddit thread every now and then, and you'll just see people going, who saw Selwood do that cheap hit behind play and all that sort of stuff. And it's a concern because you don't want to look back at a player who's probably been one of the greats of this last decade and say, look at all the dirty, cheap stuff you did behind play. Yeah,
and to be honest, this week it's felt like that reputation's now been coming to question. And I don't want to say people have been overreacting, but I did see a tweet. Someone had jumped back onto Twitter and said, good to see I'm back after Joel Selwood burned down the Vatican and poured 5,000 litres of oil into the Great Barrier Reef, and because apparently that's how bad his actions were. But I absolutely don't want to overstate that the actions were poor, but I'm honestly surprised that people are saying this. And I know people don't like Joel Selwood because of the ducking thing and that sort of that competitor nature sort of rubs people up the wrong way. And the comparison that I drew from that was, as a Geelong fan, obviously, Luke Hodge was the biggest, I want to say bully, but obviously amazing competitor, incredible captain, amazing player. Everyone idolises Luke Hodge. They still do. And as a Geelong supporter, I feel like now we're the other supporters picking on Luke Hodge in the future. I remember an incident where he nearly broke Chad Wingard's neck against the point post, and that I just felt like every week that would pop up and that doesn't get recognised or talked about. But now I guess this is how people probably feel about Selwood.
I feel like we used to always go,
Hodge,
that sniper,
that
dirty footballer.
Yeah.
But now you look back
and now I feel I'm so disappointed in Selwood.
But it's a really surprising thing considering it was the same week that Carey had just released this massive expose on how Joel Selwood's arguably one of the greatest captain ever. And he does stuff like that.
And he undoubtedly is. And it's hard for footy fans to take, a name away from a player or anything like that. But you look at his record, obviously, you look at Luke Hodge's record. I'm absolutely not doubting Luke Hodge's record as a player. I'm so disappointed in Selwood. He's my favourite player. And it's really frustrating. I found it really hard looking at some of the social media comments this week and seeing people's reviews of Selwood, and I can cop the ducking stuff. I don't believe that. Obviously, early in his career, I think there was some sort of stuff that we see Reece Matheson doing now, and I think he's come a long way since then. He goes hard at the ball. He's first at the ball. He lowers his centre of gravity. That's not ducking. That's smart.
Yes,
he doesn't duck or flop. But this criticism has hurt me as a Geelong fan, and I think it should hurt Joel Selwood, and I think he does. I don't think he owes an apology, but I think he just needs to be better, basically.
Spot on.
That's what I have to say.
I couldn't believe what he was doing. What was so unnecessary. He didn't have to do it at all. I don't know what he was trying to prove, but Luke Hodge, really good example. And the 2016 qualifying final was a great example of that, where they're both sort of, having a good go at each other. And Selwood gets the 50-man penalty from Hodge's silly mistake.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back to another one, maybe with Selwood or Hodge. Yeah, Selwood and Newman sort of, pretty much tackling each other in the air. Like, do you remember that? It was back in 2013.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that wasn't like a dirty play or anything. I remember Selwood dropping Newman on the ground because it was like a wrestle.
Yeah,
Chris Newman from the Tigers.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think football, it is that sort of thing, and there are things that you don't see behind play. I'm sure there's acts like that players do all the time in a game. That
like the Kyle Hardigan one where he elbowed Sam Walsh in the back of the head, and it was like fan cam.
Case because the first time that I started seeing this go up and about was someone posted 2 videos on social media. A Twitter fan put it up and spotted it, posted it.
Yep.
I think the rise of social media is what has pushed this a lot more, and people saying, "Hey, look at this, look at this, look at this." And it's stuff that maybe would have been previously overlooked in the past, but now people are getting a bit of a closer look at the niggle and stuff. And there's probably expert commentators out there going, "Mate, I used to do that every week. I used to give a little punch
someone was saying Lee Matthews
would
would just straight up assault people on the field, and he's considered one of the greatest footballers ever. And it's poor. And we even had Shorty do a really good piece on his Shorty's Take segment a couple of weeks back about Adam Goods, and not to go too far into that conversation, but maybe I think that is part of the reason why Adam Goods was getting booed, because of that competitive nature as well. And I think, not to justify it at all, obviously, but the Selwood thing, I think just as those sort of players lose their touch, lose their pace a bit, they start to, they feel like they're lacking a bit, and they sort of resort to other tactics that will give them the edge. And I think we saw that Hodge was probably the best example I could think of in that aspect, but I don't want to see it again. And I'll definitely follow up on Tiz and agree that it should have been a week, if not weeks, for stupid action, because you can really damage someone's eye doing that. So anyway,
I'll say one more thing on it to close off that one. What we need is suspensions for those.
Yep.
Because then you won't see them again.
Yep.
Players will go, okay, I'll get a week if I do that. I'm not going to do it. If you give players fines, that it doesn't change behaviour.
Absolutely.
And my final touch is, can't wait to have Joel Selwood on the pod next week. He did agree before this episode.
But also in saying that, the Toby Green gut punch behind play, remember when that was just like an automatic week?
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
I only saw his 60-metre talk.
That was good too. He straight up just punched Nick Newman in the gut, and he's got away with it. He only got a fine. Yeah.
When Hawkins touches someone in the stomach, it's a week.
He missed the final against Richmond because of I think he punched Will Schofield in the back of the head. But it really fluctuates. Remember when they were really cracking down on gut punches, and it was like 100% automatic week, and now it's like they focus on one thing and they lose tack of the other.
That's so stupid.
It's really frustrating. And even last week, Taylor Walker and Ben King, in the same week as the McKay head-high contact, deliberately elbowed their players in the back of the head and got a $1,000 fine. Yet McKay almost gets 3 weeks for a footy act, and it really hurts.
Frustrates me, mate.
Anyway, we haven't got an untouched moment of the week this week because, as Chook mentioned, it hasn't been a massive week. We're going to talk about a few reviews, and then we're going to get into some discussion. So obviously, one of the big games, the big Friday night game, was Geelong and the Western Bullfrogs. Ripper game, closely contested.
Game.
The Dogs lost after the siren. Gary Rowan. Well, the Dogs didn't lose after the siren. The Cats won it after the siren. Gary Rowan with an awesome kick from the pocket, 45 metres out to win by 5 points. The big talking point here, boys, is Tom Stewart. And we've been talking about him all year. We got him for free. We got TK for free. We got Tommy Stewart for free. He's going to win his 3rd All-Australian jumper this year. He's been fantastic.
Him, mate. Please
he will do it. If he plays out the rest of the year, he will make All-Australian. That was one of the best defensive performances the AFL has seen. He levelled the intercept mark record with 10. He was an absolute brick wall all night. He was fantastic. The Bulldogs midfield is absolutely purring. Liberatore, I knew Libba was having a good year, but he's having an amazing year. He's playing so well as that inside midfielder, and got a lot of respect for the Dogs. They took it right up to Geelong. I feel that was the hardest team that Geelong has played all year. Every time Geelong got up, it felt like the Dogs were coming back and kicking goals. And Menegola kicks that goal late. I'm thinking, great, Geelong's won. Toby McLean just kicks one out of the pack in his first game back, 9 months after an ACL. Toby McLean.
Oh, that's where he's been. I thought he was out of favour.
No, his first game back, no VFL prep or anything back from his ACL. Marcus Bontempelli will win the Brownlow.
Wow.
Well, he's playing so good.
Would he get votes this week though?
Probably get one or two, yeah. Sure, absolutely, we'll get 3. I just think the Dogs they haven't lost any fans at all. They'll still be there at the pointy end of the season. just a fantastic game. And did you have any discussion points from that game?
You talked about Stewart. It was interesting because he looked a bit shaky in the first quarter for a second there. You know, he did a few kicks went straight to the opposition and it looked like, oh no, what are we doing? When Stewart's not being reliable, it's a bit scary.
He literally went intercept mark, turnover, intercept mark, turnover to Libba for a goal.
And then he just turned around and he kept on going. Yeah. It was amazing. It looked like dogs were aiming for Tom Stewart. It's like, if we kick it at him, he won't be able to intercept it because it's coming to him. But it was an interesting factor. I thought the Cats looked like they could have lost it at times, but they did what they've done in a few other games, and they just hit the switch and they went hard and went well. And
2 weeks in a row with 3 goals under a minute.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, that's great
Question
stuff.
is, did you have any doubts of Gary Rowan when he was having that shot? I was personally thinking that it was either going to be a point or out on the full.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, in that moment, I felt good knowing that it'd have to be the third of 2 options.
Yeah.
To
the least percentage chance.
Miss a lot, but yeah, I wasn't I wasn't 100% confident he'd kick it, but I knew he'd probably get at least close or at least
I was
get a
just
point.
glad, he would at least get a point. I was actually super confident when the ball was bubbling in that back pocket for like a minute. I was so really confident that it was just something was going to happen. And when I saw that Selwood knock on, I was like, oh, here we go. And I got up and I was like, oh, something's going to happen here.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the Dogs just kept getting contested marks down the line and then just bombing it back inside 50.
Yeah, they didn't love their
It
eyes.
was a very similar play to the Melbourne game where Tui kicked the goal after the siren, but great game in general, Tiz.
Go for
sure.
sure.
You know, one of you.
I was going to say, it was an interesting fact, people bringing up all of a sudden going, oh, Paddy Dangerfield needs to get lessons from Rowan. Where's this all coming from? We've always known that Patrick Dangerfield can't kick a set shot. He's never been good at kicking for goal. And people are suddenly acting as if this is a surprise that he can't kick. It's obviously something that he's
needs to work on.
has worked on in the past and just can't get right. He just can't do it. And
just like that Spud from Fremantle, Nat 5.
Yeah. In my theory for Dangerfield's kicking is that he likes to put the power through it. That's why he can kick it from outside 50 because he's putting as much power as he can into that kick. When he's closer, he's trying to do those softer chip sort of kicks, which he just can't. He needs to be aiming for the bloody bleachers when he's kicking from even 10 metres out because he's going to miss it otherwise.
Well, I think on that note, too, Paddy should be playing, when he does have stints up 40, he should be playing 40 to 50 out.
Yep.
Not within 30
Not like,
minutes.
literally playing out of the goal square.
Yeah, stuff like that. He's a great mark. And sometimes his set shots are amazing. You've seen in some Sydney final a couple of years back, and Sydney, I think in round 18, 2020 last year, obviously, he kicked 3 in a row pretty nicely.
Yeah.
So
I feel like maybe when there's when the pressure isn't on him as big, it's easy. Like, if you have to kick one from the boundary, no one's expecting you to kick it, and they give you the chance if you miss it.
Or he just kicks him from outside 50.
Another one I wanted to touch on was, I've been adamant on the idea that at least one of Hawkins or Cameron should always be in the forward 50 so that there's a target at times.
Yep.
But it's interesting to note, actually, is people did bring up that Cameron and Hawkins were actually like using that run up into the back line as a chance to get away from their defender so that they could run all the way back and leave their defender behind and leave them on their own. But I thought that was a really interesting tactic to like kind of outrun the defender and get him out of the 50.
Tiz was talking about that. We were talking about that last week about there was some vision of Cameron just running a leer off his ass against Port Adelaide and just running back. And there was a moment where Hawkins and Cameron were just in the goal square by themselves and no one was 15 metres close to them because they just worked so hard. And it's a great forward combination. A great win for Geelong considering they lost Duncan. Henderson was out before the game. At one point, Cameron and Rowan looked like they knocked each other out. And I was like, oh my God.
Imagine if Rowan wasn't playing.
Obviously Dogs lost Martin before the game and Norton with a rib injury. And it was a pretty brutal game.
You talked about that Henderson laid out, and that was clearly a surprise to everyone because Geelong were forced to play Higgins, who they had set for resting, but every other player, every emergency had just played in the VFL the game before. Not a single one of them would have been capable of coming out onto that field.
I think Guthrie was the carryover emergency, but they just
it's pretty wild that Higgins, he's probably going to get his rest this week because he didn't get it at all.
He'll get his rest when he retires.
Forever and ever. Bruce was really good.
Yeah, he was.
3
goals.
Awesome goals.
Yeah,
had some really nice shots of goal, and that probably just leans back a bit on should the Cats play Blitzarves a little bit more down back. They obviously think Colo, Henry and Stewart can probably get the job done down there.
Henry played really well in Norton.
Absolutely, and no Hendo obviously was a bit of a late change and a bit of a surprise, and Blitz played a decent game in the ruck from all statistics.
26 hitouts for a midfielder.
26.
I think it's going to be a major decision against Brisbane Lions though. Is that you got Hipwood there, you got Danaher there, and if Hendo is out again,
no, he'll be good.
Even if Hendo is back, Blitz has to play back on one of them as well. There. So if Sava can't handle the ruck all on his lonesome, or if you need Henry to chip in with him or something, I'd be going to big man Reece, who apparently dominated the VFL.
Well. Yeah.
He's got to be in the side.
Yeah.
You have to back Stanley in and then play Blitzarves down back and on the wing or wherever the hell he wants to play him.
Yeah.
But I'm very impressed with how the Dogs played. Obviously, they took it right up to the Cats. I knew it was going to be a very tough game going in, and their contested balls, just elite, quite crazy, and they really took it up to us. And it took it after the siren miracle to I suppose ultimately go down in the end. So
a draw would have been a fitting result for that game. So
yeah. I don't want to keep us hammering on this as well, but I did notice there was a social media post recently. Luke Dalhouse actually came out and basically said, I'm really glad that the club's been backing me in, despite people hammering on to me about disposals and goals. They know the pressure that I'm putting on, and it is funny because myself and a lot of other fans have been going, what is Dalhouse providing that Narkle or someone can't be providing to this side? Yeah. And it seems that pressure's obviously getting to him because he actually played probably his best game.
His last few weeks have been much better. His first 4 weeks, I honestly thought he was shot. I thought he was out and close. And unfortunately, Myers, if he was there, I think Myers would have pushed Dallas out of the side. But his pressure's been much better, and that was probably one of his better games. And crucial last play to sort of knock that kick on Cordy, and it went straight to Guthrie. But Chook, you've got the Hawthorn and Essendon new ball.
Yes, probably. One of the only other interesting games of the week. Sorry, Chiz. But it was pretty exciting, and it wasn't a repeat of the last time that they met. Essendon won by 13 points down at Tasmania University. Pretty exciting stuff. But
the university,
not as dramatic a start as Bombers. They got to about a 3-goal lead early in the second quarter, and it was pretty good looking stuff at the time. And the Hawks did fight back a bit. But I think it just goes to show the difference between the sides of that earlier round and the current round, in that the Bombers showed their maturity and their ability to stay tall, and they held on, kicked a few more goals to win in the end. Or not really pinch it because they had it most of the game, but to get that win and to seal the deal. And it was basically led by one big player who I spoke about the other week. I said he's back to being one of the best forwards in the game.
Ooh,
Jake Stringer, career best game, you would argue, 29 disposals, 4 very crucial goals, 7 tackles as well to go in that. So he was being defensive, and 12 score involvements.
Wow.
So he basically had the game of his career, and that's a big statement considering the heights he reached at the Dogs. It seemed with McGrath and the likes of the midfield being out, he was able to get in the guts and have an impact, as well as still hit the target up forward. And, gee, do we have a Dustin Martin on our hands?
Dustin Martin from Wish. I love the bit of commentary. I don't know if you guys saw it, of when he did that sort of one-handed ball drop onto his boot, and Nick Rewalt was trying to commentate it, and he just said, "Oh, far out!" Like that's. He just went like, "Oh, wow." It was a good kick, and it was a good game in general.
It was major. It was really exciting stuff to see, and you think that this sort of performance is going to keep them going, and it's got them close to the 8. I think they're only a game shy, but 2 major challenges up ahead against both the Demons and then the Cats. So 2 of the best and most informed sides. It's going to be a big ask, because if you lose both of them, you'd say maybe 8 isn't a chance. They have a few easier games after, but if they can win one of those games, I think the 8 is well and truly on the cards.
And it's interesting that Essendon and GWS play each other, and they both play Sydney.
Yikes.
Still, again. So if one of those teams beats Sydney and then they play each other, it's like, well, there's your spot in the 8 also. But yeah, generally a pretty good game. And
the Bombers were doing
Bombers-
pretty well. And
Bombers forward
it
line
looks
was
like we were talking about a while ago, how come none of these Bombers are getting recognised? And we ended up getting one Rising Star nomination. And the breaking news come in is Harry Jones has come in for the next Rising Star for the Bombers. So good on him this
he was
week.
clunking him. He was absolutely clunking him.
Kicked an early goal in the first to kind of set the tone, and they kept going from here. Now,
5 contested marks as well. Really impressive for the young
Yeah,
man.
he was literally like Joe Danaher. Literally flying and clunking and marking. It was
it's
great.
weird how we've been going topsy-turvy with a lot of these teams, the Eagles, the Blues, the Bombers, all these sides of how they're looking crap, then they're looking good, then they're looking not so good. Give me a quick one. Will they make the 8, just off the top of your head?
Essendon?
Essendon.
No.
Tiz? No?
I don't think they will.
No. Giants.
Be
will.
very close though.
You think Giants will
Yep.
take it? I think they will. I think
Okay,
they've got
well.
some easy games after these 2, which they could lose. I think they could push to win one of those games. I think they've got some easier beats which could help boost the percentage and catch up to a few
If they
of the
beat
other sides.
one of Geelong and Melbourne, then yes.
Yeah.
But
That's
talk to me in
funny.
2 weeks.
That's
Yeah.
funny because I have them in my 8.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
We've talked early about Bombers mostly, but I did want to touch on the Hawks. Now, a lot of people are going to this Hawks side and saying, they've kind of started on that semi-rebuild that they needed to do. And we've had harping in the media about, Tom Mitchell is eyeing off going to other clubs and that maybe they need to offload some of their senior players. But this is still a great core at this side. Both Titch and O'Meara did both break 30 touches, and they're both good, solid midfielders. I just think they need more of the surrounding players. So Impey has come in and is actually playing some pretty
good.
solid football as
Off
well.
halfback,
They've got a few of those guys doing some pretty good stuff. Wingard is a bit of a cherry sort of player, as in like he's a cherry on top. He's not going to do a lot of the hard yards himself. He's more to help. But I think they need some more of that outside. I would not be going, all right, we need to throw out the bathwater and restart.
Yep.
Tom Mitchell's still young. O'Meara's definitely still young. These guys have 4 or 5 years of good football left in them.
They've
You
got
should
good
not
kids,
be
Hawthorn.
going, we should be dropping these guys. Bruce also played one of his best games for the year.
Yeah.
He was
still got
pretty
it.
impressive. He's still very talented. Gunston's a guy
Hasn't
who's
been there.
probably
Yeah.
a bit in and out. But you look at this team has been flying in the past. You remember that, who's that backman who did his ACL? Sicily.
Yeah,
Is
he's
absolutely
still gotta come
flying.
back,
One of the
yeah.
best backs. He's missed all this year.
Will Day just
He'll
came
be
back
back
too,
next
and
year.
their back line, I think David King was talking about Hawthorn building it from the back. They've got Blake Hardwick, who's had a really good year. Scrimshaw's been really good. CJ, obviously, Impey plays back there. Sam
Hardigan
Frost does his bit.
still-
Hardigan's still in prison, and they've got to wheel him out on one of those stretches.
This side is not a lost cause.
No, absolutely
And
not.
If people are thinking that when it comes to the free agency period that they should be trying to offload the
Nah,
likes of Mitchell,
no way.
you're out of your mind because all they need is one good target to come back in and help that midfield core, and then they'll have a few of their injuries come back. Hawks won't be fighting for the 8 for a little while, but in a couple of years they could be well and truly right.
It's interesting what you said about Nathan Buckley last week and how the media sort of prey on the story, and when it happens, they sort of flip their narrative. And I feel like it's the same this year with North Melbourne and Hawthorn. Everyone was, baying for blood, and they wanted, the coach is gone or something happened, something to change. And it happened, and now it happens. And Kane Corns was like, North Melbourne are like the worst team ever, and they haven't won any games. And he was like, what do you expect? And you're the one that was calling them to... do a rebuild and start again. And Damo was wanting them to relocate to Tassie and start again. Let them have their time. Just give them a year or 2 years. They're well-established, pretty successful clubs. North Melbourne still won flags within, the last 20 odd years?
Yeah,
It's
99 was
better
the
than
last one.
most. So just give them their time. I don't... A lot of people talk about relocating north to Tasmania. I don't think it's that dire yet, and we will talk about another team involving Tasmania later on. But Tiz, I believe, unless we have any other further points, I believe we have the GWS and Carlton game up next, and talking about a team who is underperforming.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you who is. It's definitely the Carlton Blues.
The Carltonians.
That's a shocker.
GWS, 36-point win for them. Carlton challenge, obviously, kept it close at times, and obviously caught up a little bit sort of towards that, I suppose, the final 10, and the Giants blew them away. So they keep bombing out in these last quarters. Probably one of the worst last quarter teams in the competition. West Coast probably was up until the last couple of weeks where they've been pretty positive. I think North Melbourne definitely on that list as well. The Carlton defence needs a real do over. They need to do something. They've got too many lapses. We saw some easy plays where there'd be slow plays, and then Giants just find targets inside 50. Isaac Cumming getting his first goal.
That was shocking. That was the bit I watched, and I was going to bring it up, but now you've mentioned it. I turned it on for 10 minutes, and Giants just chipped it easily down the wing.
Yep.
They got that mark on 50, then another mark on 50. Cumming was just chilling there.
Yep.
Just easily walked up. No one was defending. Carlton only have 2 defenders that defend, Wiedering and Jones, and the others just run off half-back and...
Well, they are. That's all that those guys have been known for.
Yeah.
It's funny that you do say that because, Sard at the Bombers was always known as he's the guy that'll run off the flank. You got Zach Williams, who at the Giants was always just the guy you'd give it to so he could run off. They're not really the defensive defenders.
Doherty doesn't. He doesn't.
Doherty
defend.
has always been that as well.
Yeah.
So,
but there's still accountability, and then there's defending, and they haven't got either.
Well, that's right. And 138 marks to Jeremy West, and 120 of those uncontested.
That's crap.
You can work.
How much time and space?
So that's just a lack of work rate. That's a lack of will to defend, and just completely just lapsing there for the Blues. Carlton were almost double out tackled, if that makes sense. So the Giants had more of the footy and almost got double the amount of tackles that Carlton laid. So that's just an absolute mindset and work unwillingness to work for Carlton, and that's just shocking from the Blues. Toby Green, absolute goat. Tore up on quarter time, and he kicked another 4 goals. Finlayson was really good up forward. He got some good service.
Career high,
and there wasn't a lot of pressure from the midfield. It has to be said with all those numbers I've just mentioned. And so 5 goals. Can he do that a bit more consistently? He doesn't have to kick 5 every week, but if he can do a Gary Rowan where you're kicking 2 goals a week or 3 goals a week, you're loving life. So Carlton had no answer for Walsh as well, getting his first tag. Chook, and we mentioned off the top, why Carlton not playing well. They've got the cattle there. Their leaders aren't leading.
No, they did not help Walsh at all. They just, fair enough, he needs to learn to cop a tag and run off his man and work hard, but there was not any blocks or bumps or anything on De Boer to just let him know that we're watching out for our young star and we're going to look out for him.
Come on, despite him being Sam Walsh and being an outright superstar leading the pack, it's his third year of football. Name another player other than Joel Selwood, arguably, who has been the star of the show in their 3rd season. Where are the big names to look after him? Paddy Cripps, mate. You're as tall as a ruckman. Can't you come in and lay a bump on anybody?
I'd love to see. And the one thing I did see was Matthew Owies, when he kicked a goal, he grabbed his jumper and he bashed that Carlton logo on his chest. And I was like, that's what I want to see. And he's had an absolute crack all year. And you don't see that from Cripps. You don't see it from him. And it actually frustrates me to watch. And I actually feel for Carlton fans. I feel really bad for them because they topped up this year.
They were going for, let's get a flag in a couple of years.
Collingwood delisted half their list and were giving away best 22 players for free. Carlton is 0.2% above them on the ladder, and Carlton topped up with Williams and Sard.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, why didn't Carlton go after Jaden Stevenson or one of those guys to help him out there? But Harry Mackay re-signed. That was their big story, and then they go out and do this. They should have been going, all right, Harry, you've only picked 2 years. I wonder why. It's because you want to leave straight to free agency.
Mark McClure behind the camera at gunpoint again.
Show this kid that he has just made a good decision, put in some fight, and take on the Giants, who is a side that has been reasonably poor. I know they've improved this year, but Carlton, you guys should be winning this game or fighting in this game. What have you done? And I think it was summed up by Mackay himself, the performance of Carlton lately. You see, he gets to the ball, an easy mark, goes for a run in the pocket, plays on, bounces it, loses the ball, goes straight out of bounds. That is a joke that sums up Carlton's season, not just the game. They need to make some big decisions, and it's not just a case of, let's sack the coach and the board because they're not the ones that are causing this. The players with no heart, no talent are the ones that are doing this.
No effort.
As to where the blame gets pointed to, it's a bit of everything, isn't it? But the players certainly aren't. The message either isn't getting through, or the message just isn't enough for them.
Do they care about the message?
Yeah. Is David Teague not inspiring the players enough? But we see Docky. He's been fumbling all season. I've never
Yeah,
seen
he
him
has.
so
He
rattled.
really has, hasn't he?
So many times he's fumbled and it's led to a goal.
Yeah.
We saw Kelly kick the goal, and I reckon round 1 he made a silly
The
mistake.
Sydney game, he had like 4.
Yep.
He just didn't go the ball and just left it on the ground. And I think Heaney picked it up and kicked a goal and scored it. So
And Cripps, he's probably injured, but you'll hear after the season saying, "Oh, Cripps played with a broken back all
get him
season."
out
something
then.
like that.
Get
He
him
shouldn't be in the
out.
side.
Play Stocker in the midfield where you drafted him
Yeah.
at, not off half back. What did you make? I want to hear about the Murphy thing.
Well, so there's a bit of talk about should Murphy get to game 300. I believe right now he's at 295. He's been dropped a few times with form, but I don't reckon he's their worst player.
Or the biggest problem.
By any stretch. So I suppose the discussion, the questioning is around should Carlton allow Mark Murphy to get to game 300? They're not going to make finals, so that makes me lean towards yes. If they were finals chances, they probably go with the best 22. Murphy might be the 23rd or 24th best player. What do we think?
They're not making finals, and I'd have Murphy in before a lot of players. I'd honestly get the kids in now, which is a really cliche term, and I don't throw it around lightly, but they need to do something, and they need to actually play their high draft picks in the positions. They need to have Cripps, Dow, Stocker in the midfield, play Walsh out on the wing. We know he's going to play well wherever. Play the players, the young kids especially. Find out if Dow's worth having at your club because he hasn't shown much in 4 years. I know Shorty's big on Dow.
Yeah. I'm interested to see, because if you do chuck some of these young kids into the midfield without much assistance, how are they going to handle that? Are they going to get beaten up and then go, all right, I'm no good, lose all their confidence?
Dow was picked 2 as an inside mid.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not talking about the Dow. I'm talking about the other younger fellas and the likes. But the crucial thing is, everyone's been raving about Harry Mackay, how good he's been. He's kicked 41 goals. 17 goals. Eddie Betts is second. Still, Langers, you touched on this. We were talking about how shit Mark Murphy's been. He's 6th in their goal kicking. He's kicked 7 goals.
Yeah.
How is no one kicking goals in this team but Harry Mackay? Yes, Charlie Kernell, they're going, he could be fighting back for the end of the year. Well, why is he going to come back at the end of the year? You guys aren't making finals.
Yeah.
You better bandaging him up and help him come in next year, because if he gets injured again at the end of the year in a thumping, this side forward line could look a lot better with Charlie in it. But guess what? The forward line's not the thing that's losing your games. It's everything else. It's your midfield. It's your back line leaking goals. Shape up, guys. There's not much else you can do.
Shots fired from Joe.
They're getting absolutely bashed in the midfield each week, and I mean, your forward line and your back line will be as good as your midfield is. If your midfield cannot defend properly or don't come back to help out, you're going to leak goals and make crazy turnovers in the back line. If you're at least levelling in the contest in the middle, your forwards will get a look, and they'll have separation from their defenders that are on them. So there's just so much to fix up, it feels.
Teague said specifically they brought Matthew Kennedy and Fogarty in to be a contested tackling team, and they still lost the tackle. So there's something just not the effort's not there. And at today, Cripps and Wiedering came out and publicly backed the coach and said, we're as much to blame as the coach is. And bloody right you are. Yeah. Something's wrong, and it's really bad.
You've been talking about Paddy Cripps is broken and should be rested.
Yeah.
Why is he still leading basically nearly every stat? Why is he leading tackles?
He's clearly talented.
Tackling is like the thing that anyone should be able to do. Ed Curno's second in tackles. Haven't heard his name all year.
Yeah.
He's actually still playing.
Pretty sure he's been dropped a few times.
Yeah, and they moved him to half back as well. Ed Curnow, one of the games against Sydney, I think.
I don't understand what's going on. And who's here getting contested possessions? I wonder who's at the top there. Oh, Paddy Cripps again. Sam Walsh. Ed Curnow, third again. Mark Pitnett, your ruckman.
Wow.
What is going on here?
What? The ruckman's fourth in their team for contested possessions.
He is fourth for contested possessions. Your ruckman... let's have a look at total clearances. Cripps, Walsh, Pitnett, third for clearances.
You can't be serious.
You can't be serious.
Surely you can't be serious. I think that's enough on the Blues, but they're probably arguably one of the most disappointing clubs right now.
Disappointing. I was pushing them for top 4. Anyway, talking about disappointing teams, we're going to hear from Shorty quickly. He's going to do a bit of a discussion piece about the disappointing Gold Coast side.
Hey fellas, enjoy the pod. I'm sure Gold Coast top of the agenda, or certainly thereabouts, and I just wanted to put through my say on them. And another week and another really poor performance by them, getting thumped by Port Adelaide. And I had the Saturday off. I thought, I'll sit down. It doesn't look like a blockbuster, but I'll see what comes of it. And it was just terrible. A terrible atmosphere. They never gave a yelp. It was over very early in the piece. So I want to talk about the broader picture, which I'm sure you guys are discussing as we speak. And I just don't see a spot for him in the AFL. And you boys probably know Shorty's whacked the Gold Coast Suns a few times. But how long can we go on for saying, oh, it's great that, the youngsters are playing Auskick and the game's growing in Gold Coast, how awesome. So, yeah, right, that's great. But their team is shithouse. They are a soulless club. They add nothing to the AFL right now. And they've been in here, 10 years? And it just looks dour as ever. And it's probably even more damning because you've got Tasmania screaming to have a side. And you just see on the weekend, the biggest thing for me is the crowds and the interaction, the engagement. Can you name a game where the Gold Coast crowd was pumping and there was atmosphere? The only time that sort of comes to my mind is when Gary kicked 4 against the Saints. It might have been round 1 or round 2. But it's so rarely pumping. And you look at Tasmania on the weekend and, they almost came out and said, no, we love our footy. We're going to support this game no matter what. Got a big game. It's a football state. They love it. Give these people a team. They must hate Gold Coast. It frustrates me. I don't think they'll be in the competition in 10 years. And you can say, they've invested so much money, there's no turning back. Well, yeah, there is. You just because something's failed and you put a bit of coin into it doesn't mean you just go, it's here to stay. Just because you've been dating someone 4 years and it's not going so good doesn't mean you marry them. Spend the rest of your life with them. Break it off. So I know the AFL do everything in their power to keep them, and I get that. And probably the grand plan is maybe a 20-team competition. I understand that. We want a national game. Fantastic. But I love that it's growing the game in Gold Coast and there's youngsters playing footy. But at some stage, the on-field stuff has to match it. They have to contribute something to this competition because they continue to put in heartless performances and just be a breeding ground for other bigger clubs to pick off their young talent. I think there's just an enormous amount of pressure and expectation on what will happen in their future off the back of what happens on Rowell, King, Anderson, Lukosius, Rankin, that sort of group. Because we've seen their youngsters already come and go. We've seen Lynch, we've seen Presty, we've seen Caddy. The names sort of go on. So will this group stay together and say, no, we're not going to go to a big Melbourne club and get success. We believe we can get success here and we're going to change this club. We're going to turn it around, we're going to stick together, maybe get paid a little less than what we could, but we're going to take this club somewhere because that will provide some soul. We saw it at the Giants. Yeah, they've lost some players, but they've also had a core group stay together, and you've heard Cornelio talk about it with other people. And you think about the Giants and, it'd just be great if the Suns could have some form of success. The biggest disappointment was Ablett doing his shoulder. They were on track for finals, and it could have just given them something. Even the Giants, you think about their rivalry with the Dogs, the hard footy that you sort of associate with them, and they've played some finals, and, there's been some big wins. It just gives them some character, something they stand for, some soul. You think of Gold Coast, you just go, yeah, it's great to have you boys. Give them a little pat on the head. Yeah, good to have you, Gold Coast. Awesome. Just grow the game up there for you, would you? But just be an easy 4 points for us down here in Melbourne. They've got no respect. And I just think it's a massive 3 to 4 years because the AFL is going to support them and support them and support them until they don't. We're not going to get a running commentary of, no, we're probably 70% actually. Don't know if we'll keep them around. They're going to be 100% backing. But behind closed doors, I'm sure it's not always happy families. So, bit of pressure on Dew, bit of pressure on this club. I honestly don't think there's a space for them in the AFL in the long term. I've tried to like them, I've tried to get on board, but they just keep giving plenty of reasons to jump off them. So, would love to hear your thoughts on the big picture. I'll talk to you guys soon.
So some pretty hard-hitting comments there from Shorty, and some pretty big things in there, Tiz. What are your thoughts?
Some ginormous points in there, just absolutely tore Gold Coast apart, just like Port Adelaide did over the weekend. And what a time to discuss it. I mean, They also just lack leadership. Took Miller's probably one of the players in there that can actually hold his head up high each week. He's improved, head and shoulders above pretty much everyone else. David Swaley's been there forever, but does he impact enough games? Does he win you enough games? There's obviously some promising talent there with Rao and Anderson and Lukosius. Obviously, those guys Shorty mentioned, but I haven't been across too many situations where an extension club has just been removed from the AFL. I don't think it's ever happened. Maybe university back in the 1920s, whatever it was. But yeah, Fitzroy, I suppose, might be another one that kind of went with a bit of a merge there. But I do struggle to see them there in the bigger picture and grand scheme of things. Hopefully Tassie get a team eventually. It's been talked about for 10 or 15 years to get a Tassie team easily. Probably maybe even going to that 20-year mark. But I don't stand for much at the moment. The coach can't seem to get consistency. The leaders aren't driving standards. Players aren't staying there. And, as Shorty said, having that culture and standing for something, that they've just got so many missing links and missing pieces that makes up a football club, and there's so many intangibles that they need to improve on. Culture, work rate, just week-to-week pressure. They've got so many things to fix, and they haven't even made finals or close to making finals except for when Abler did his shoulder. We've seen the Giants, if you want to compare the two, pretty similar circumstances, but again, they haven't gotten close to the 8 except that 1 year. They really need to they need to pull out something miraculous in the next couple of years. Otherwise, I'm not sure if they'll be around. And then when do you say time's up? When do you ask the question? So it's going to be interesting to see what the AFL does, and the Suns got a lofty task ahead of them.
It's interesting, Tiz, and I'm on the Suns side, and it's not just because they're my equal second favourite team.
With St Kilda?
With St Kilda, yeah.
Whoa.
Sorry,
You're going well.
Yeah. But the fact is, I know there's only so many times you can blame injuries for a club, and they've been in the system for 10 years now, or whatever it's been. But Ablett wasn't the only injury thing that ruined their season early on. Swallow barely played a game, and I think his entire career has been ruined by the fact his early injuries. You got the likes of everyone that's basically left since then, but they were all in, like, Diego O'Meara barely played a game for the Suns to start off with. He was, I can't think of a top draft pick from their original crop who didn't actually get super injured and wasn't able to play any games. Harley Bennell and Charlie Dixon both had massive off-field issues. They were arguably their two best players and were helping push them forward, and, went off the rails to an extent which kind of, impacted them hugely. You've looked now, future on.
Prestia might have been another one that had plenty of injuries. Yep. Yeah. Caddy
was arguably not really that great at the Suns, and, I think he's more of a helper sort of player than he has been someone to push them. But I think they're doing the right things now. I think Lockie Weller and Ellis and these guys have brought some leadership and some structure to the side and are helping these guys to an extent. And I can say injuries all the time, but goddamn, Jared Witts is the biggest thing that they could ever have. They're playing with Zach Smith again. I'm sorry, Zach. Sorry, Zach, but you're not good enough. You're not AFL standard. Jared Witts was arguably one of the best ruckmen in the league, and he's injured. He's out. Matty Rao was a gun last year, and his shoulder ruined him. He's still a bit hesitant, and he's not back there yet. They have been faced by injuries over and over again. Their entirety of their season, crucial players have been getting massive injuries, and it's ruined them. And you can say, they started on the same playing field as the Giants, but they didn't. They were working out of portables for the first 3 years of existence.
That was crap.
The Giants were given this massive stadium and all this money, and they were given double the amount of draft picks, the Giants, because this AFL looked and went, oh shit, we screwed up the Suns.
I remember watching the Gold Coast vlogs back in 2012, 2013, and they'd be like, this is this new player, we'll go and show you the gym. They walked out of the classroom portable down across a grassy paddock. Wow. And then over to the other portal. It was crap. And it's the AFL's fault, 100%.
They got nothing.
This is their mistake. I absolutely agree that they've been rocked by injuries. Shocking. I'm a big fan of the Gold Coast too, and I obviously want them to succeed. But there has to be something that gives. They have to start winning games. I wouldn't be surprised if there'd be conversations already from the higher-ups of the AFL saying, hey, Gold Coast, you up? What's going on? I like Gold Coast. I don't respect them, like Shorty said. I agree there needs to be a Tassie team for sure. Whether that's a Gold Coast leaving and going to Tassie, I'm not sure. Eventually, I think the long play would be for a 20-team league. Everyone plays each other once. That would be great, I think.
Fair and even.
The competition's not ready for that yet. I don't know.
The dilution of talent would be
enormous. I don't know. I would hate to see Gold Coast go out, but I think it can and might happen within the next 5 years if they don't get themselves together.
I touched on the short term, and the previous of why I rationalised that it's harsh to judge them so harshly so far. Like, yes, there's been mistakes, but Shorty touched on it that involvement in the state has grown a lot, and you can say Auskick isn't what matters, but guess what? That's actually what the AFL values the most. They want increased exposure, increased participation, and right now they're actually winning the battle with the NRL in terms of getting young kids on board and getting talent. Yes, if the Suns are performing poorly, it doesn't really help those people in that state, but there's room to grow. And here's an easy stat. I look at the 2020 population numbers. Tasmania, 500,000. Queensland, 5 million. Who's going to have the most growth? There's a limit in Tasmania as to where you can go. Queensland, they can get huge. You're saying there's not room for two sides. Guess what? We've got like 15 teams in Victoria.
Yeah.
Of course, there's room for two teams in Queensland, and there's only more room to grow. And if you actually, respect the club and give them some resources and some faith, I'm sure we'll see them grow up to the top in the next 5 or 6 years.
I guess the other question to follow on from that is, have they been given the faith? Have they been given draft picks, the discretions from the AFL already, and has it helped them?
Oh, it's really tough, especially when you talk about the injuries. They've had injuries over a long period of time. I wonder if the conditioning staff is still around from the beginning, whether that's changed up. That's probably another thing to consider as well. We see Brisbane, they get Lincoln McCarthy, who just couldn't get a game at the Cats at all, and obviously
Picks him right up.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it. I feel like there was another Lions player that was at another club, and Joe Danaher. Joe Danaher obviously just injured all the time in Essendon. Comes out to Brisbane and he's fine. So Nakai Cockatoo will be the absolute,
He
edge case there.
Has been playing well, but he did just get injured in the VFL on the weekend. So
I think he should just retire. But this is not about Nakai Cockatoo. I feel like they've been given a lot. Maybe the Giants have been given a bit more. At what point, do you just say what's happening in Gold Coast? You've had plenty of time. When's their expiry date, or what do they intangibly have to prove to the AFL that they are? I'm trying to think of the word
that they're worthy.
Yeah, they're worthy. Yeah.
I don't agree with the idea that they should
feasible.
Be given more, I don't agree that they should be given more incentives or concessions. I think enough's enough. They have the talent now to grow. I think they've got a lot of that young talent has signed for at least the medium term, 2 to 3 years to come. I think we'll see growth from these guys, and hopefully they don't get all pinched, because it looks like they've got a good group of fellas. They've got some good talent they've brought in from other clubs who are doing well. We mentioned before, it's Atkins.
Yeah, he can't even get a game for them, Rory Atkins.
Yeah, but when he was getting the game, he was looking all right. And then even Oleg Markov was playing really good football.
Yeah, Markov's been playing great, and Alice has been good. Greenwood's been good.
Yeah.
Weird about Atkins. I don't know about him.
I thought he
played like a couple, and he's not been getting a game.
How was he in Adelaide's best 22?
Yeah, he just doesn't get a game for
with injuries off the table, I think this side has shown a lot of excitement. I think people put too much on the shoulders of these young guys and expect them to, fight with the best. But how many other clubs during this period have been at the bottom? Like, there's plenty of clubs who still haven't shown equal as heights as them. Some of them have maybe just made it to finals and then bottomed out again the next few years. So give them a chance. And if you see them plugging at the bottom in 18th for the next few years, then maybe... Yeah. Major danger signs, but I think we've seen constant improvement.
They need to make finals in the next 2 years to warrant the discussion not going any further. But
just being more competitive from week to week, be a hard side to play against. And we've seen in the first half of years they've been, sometimes tricky to play against, but then second half of the year they've been awful. They've barely won games.
Absolutely. Now, there's a couple other games from round 14 that did happen.
Yes. The Lions were challenged by the Roos in Tassie. There's been lots of talk about Tassie over the weekend with some games there. But came home with a 23-point win, and off the top from, I suppose, Shorty's spray on the Gold Coast Suns, the Port Adelaide Power rampant 50-point win at Metricon, which took place.
Smashed them. And next week, we're back to normal viewing. There's a big game on Thursday night. Geelong versus Brisbane up at the Gabba. Jeez, this is going to be huge. And we thought the Bulldogs versus Geelong was going to be massive, and we thought Melbourne versus Brisbane was going to be massive, and this one's going to be crucial to deciding what happens in the top four makeup. I've gone the Cats. We beat Brisbane there last year in a final, and I believe we beat them there during home and away as well, if that's correct. Potentially.
2020.
We definitely beat them earlier this year, just. And I'm backing Geelong. They've just been in great form, and backing them.
I'll be backing in the Cats as well. I think they're one of the best teams in the comp. So are Brisbane, arguably, but I think the Cats just have that leadership in the side, and Selwood didn't get suspended, so they'll be able to keep it going, I reckon.
I've gone Brisbane. Gabatoir will help out a little bit. We fell over the line at our home deck earlier in the year, so I think just sort of equating a lot
Both
together.
teams were completely different to now, though, isn't it?
Yep.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, but no, very tough one. I think Brisbane just.
Next up, we've got on the Friday night, St Kilda versus Richmond. I think we all know who we're going for here. I just really want St Kilda to come out breathing fire. We saw how bad it looked for Carlton to come off the bye and not do that, and the criticism that they're receiving this week, and it would be horrible for St Kilda to do the same thing against Richmond.
I think it'll be great to see crowds at the MCG.
Yeah, hopefully.
Footy back.
30%.
Let's get excited about that. But I think Richmond are going to win it, and it'll be unfortunate for the Saints.
Great to give Richmond an easy game after the bye to start their 10-game winning streak.
Absolutely, yeah. Richmond by 10 goals in this one, 10 plus goals.
Next up, an absolute blockbuster, the North Melbourne Kangaroos versus Gold Coast at Blundstone Arena.
The battle for Tasmania, is it?
Pretty much. These games are actually always pretty interesting, North and Gold Coast, and Gold Coast seem to always beat North, so...
Do they?
Yikes. No, North have been pretty good. They've been pretty good as of late. They've been much more competitive, so North all around?
I'll be tipping Gold Coast.
Whoa, okay.
North have been solid, but I just love the Suns, mate.
Yeah, I like the Suns too. It'd be good if they got up.
Yeah, that's gone completely against Shorty's spray, not say. North Melbourne for mine. They're pretty tough to beat at Blundstone. So, and they have been building, just haven't been getting the wins, but I think they'll win this week.
Then we've got Collingwood and Fremantle at Marvel Stadium, and I've tipped the Pies.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go. No Bucks caretaker time, and
no Bucks, no Degoe, no more.
I was going to say no Bucks given.
Wow.
If Fife's back for Freo, I'll be looking towards Freo.
Okay.
But I think Collingwood have, as I've said all year, Collingwood have actually been a pretty decent side this whole time. They've just lost out a few games, and I don't see them losing this one.
Yeah, I think Collingwood just, Freo probably not as great away from home and can sort of struggle on the road a bit. But yeah, the Pies system has been decent over the last few weeks.
Freo got smashed by Carlton at Etihad Stadium earlier in the year. So
that's what made me think of it.
Yep. Yeah. Next up on the Saturday night, we've got Essendon versus Melbourne. This should be an absolute cracking game.
Huge.
I'm tipping Melbourne just on, obviously they're the best team in the comp, but gee, this will be close. Should be a ripper.
I love that. It's just because they're the best team in the comp. Yeah, I'll back the Demons as well. Bombers are a really good side at the moment. We saw their improvement. But Demons will get it. Let's see how they do. 2,000 grand final all over again, is it?
2,000 grand final replay. Yeah, I think Melbourne as well. MCG factor. Essendon will definitely give them a real good push there, that's for sure. But I think Melbourne, too good here.
And the other Saturday game at Adelaide Oval, Port Power versus Sydney Swans, and the Swans are vulnerable after their loss to Hawthorn, and they'll be looking to reignite their season because they are at risk of falling out of the 8. But I think the Power will be too strong here.
Yeah, I'll get the pair as well.
Maybe.
Yeah, pair.
I'll also tip the Port Adelaide Power to get the job done. But Sydney, they have a knack of losing games that they shouldn't and then winning games that they shouldn't. So anything's possible here.
And to finish off on the Sunday quick, we've got the Giants versus Hawthorn. I'll be tipping the Giants.
Giants
Giants at Giants Stadium.
another ripping game. Optus Stadium, West Coast versus Bulldogs. The Bulldogs they're flying over to the penitentiary estate, holiday resort. I've got to tip the Eagles here because they look back in pretty good form.
I'll go the Dogs. I still think they're a great side, and it's amazing how quickly things turn around. You guys were all saying West Coast were dead and dusted. Here they are, back fighting again.
Everyone, woohoo! I flipped a coin and it landed on the side, but I'm going the West Coast Eagles home ground factor.
And this could get ugly. This on the last game of the week as well, before all the Monday and Sunday night news.
Oh God!
If Carlton lose to Adelaide,
what are you gonna do
at Marvel Stadium?
They'll have to rename to the Beyond.
I don't know. I actually said when I tipped Carlton against Sydney, I said I wasn't going to tip them for the rest of the year, so I'm going to tip Adelaide.
Ooh, I did tip Carlton. I know we just tore them a new one compared to Gold Coast, but
I cannot.
I still think surely they fight and win.
So
this
there
game.
you go. They'll win this game because I haven't tipped them.
Yeah, they often win when you don't tip them. I've gone the Adelaide Crows. So I feel like I trust them at 5% more than Carlton. So Adelaide. If Tex has a big game, they win.
Yeah, g'day. Sniper Shadow here from Adelaide Oval. Boys, thank you for joining me this week. Sorry, it was just that was my Mark video impression. Thank you for joining me this week, Chook. Good to have you and good to see you in person.
Good. One of the weakest rounds, but I think one of our longest and best odds episodes.
And Tiz, always good to see you.
Absolutely, mate. And thank you very much for hosting, Mark.
No thanks, Tiz. Back to you on the box. Thank you guys for listening to this point. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe on all of our platforms to get all of our content, and we'll hear from you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. AFL Unlimited, because footy is limitless.